So I just want to start by acknowledging that we are on, or I am on, the territory of the Lekwungen speaking peoples and the Wasanic peoples. And I'm very grateful to be on this land and think about what it actually means to be an uninvited guest on this land. Yeah, so as you can see, I finished my black work, which is kind of the project I've been working on this past, I have been having a hard time doing embroidery lately. As you can see, I have lots of moving boxes that are still unpacked. So it's pure chaos in this place, but maybe it's just part of 2020. So I finished this maybe 2 weeks ago. And now to get back into embroidery, I'm now starting a kit because I thought that way it's just mindless embroidery, which is kind of what I need right now. Yeah, does anyone want to talk about anything that they've been working on or personal things that they want to get off their chest? Yeah, Beatrice, you introduced yourself. Beatrice says, hello everyone, my name is Beatrice, and after approximately 1.5 months without a working laptop, really bad timing, I can finally attend my first meeting. Thank you so much for joining. I know that feeling of broken laptops just getting in the way of life.
It's been very inconvenient, but I'm happy to be here now.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Joan says, I just want to say hi. I missed the last meeting session because of moving and some family stuff. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for joining, Joan. I know how it feels of moving stuff. Yeah, so I thought we would start off. It'll be a little bit of a different meeting today or session because we have a guest speaker coming at 2. So it will only kind of give us about an hour to talk through things and maybe to learn some new skills. Hannah says, I may have to duck out early due to some health issues today and a teething toddler. Oh, yeah. I have the video off because I've just been sneezing and coughing. Yeah, if you want to have your video off. Yesterday I spent all day outside, so I'm also coughing today quite a bit from the smoke. It's a gloomy day out there today. Yeah, so I wanted to check in to see if anyone who's been working on their projects wanted to show off their work. There's been a little bit on the Facebook group of different badges that I've been seeing, which have been so lovely. Does anyone want to share any of the work that they've been working on, or talk about any barriers that they're facing in trying to do embroidery work?
I guess like it's something that's kind of hard to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to get intimidated, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. Yeah, yeah. Is it, you feel like there's too many options that you could be doing?
Yeah, I think that's mostly it. And then it's also like with 2020 the way that it is, it's like there's so many other things that you need to be doing.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's always about giving yourself, not making it a task, like making it something fun to be doing. If it's a task, I don't know if that's going to work this year.
Yeah, once I get down to it, I really enjoy it, but it's getting there.
Yeah. I also find, so like a kit, if you have, like, this is why I went with a kit, because I wanted something mindless that would relaunch my enjoyment of embroidery. Mm-hmm. But like even this is all back stitches, and doing just one type of embroidery stitch might be a good way. I know a lot of people who do French knots and they just do it over and over and over.
Okay.
And it may be a way to like limit what your creativity is going to be, which might be helpful.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Hannah says, I was really happy with how my patch turned out, and I've attached it to Artie's backpack. Hannah, is it okay if I show that maybe on the Facebook, in case folks haven't seen it?
Oh, I see. Sorry. I was looking in the chat and I'm like, I don't see a new comment, but it just shows up under the same text. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, so I'm going to show Hannah, maybe I'll screen share and just show some of the patches that have been coming up on the Facebook group, just in case folks haven't seen it.
So I've been really working on just sort of an internal kind of changing in my own patterns and behaviors and stuff around perfectionism and setting really high goals and super high achievement ends. And like nothing ever happens when I set these goals. So like I've really been giving myself permission to just noodle along and do what I do, and it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. And also like really just enforcing for myself that like practice is a really important part of this, and I have to just practice, right? It's just not like I'm going to be instantly embroidering, you know?
I mean, you can instantly embroider, but I think that's what I do. But I think that's why I asked everyone to start with a sampler of like really learning those stitches, learning how to feel happy. And it's not going to be perfect. Embroidery is not a perfect thing. Every French knot I do will look very different, especially if, again, I'm doing something, if I'm watching TV and not paying attention to it. But yeah, just getting used to those stitches, kind of doing them over and over. So it'll be like knitting, in which you just know that, like knit and purl. And then from there, figuring out if you want to do your own design or if you want to do a kit. I think embroidery is pretty nice to have for that imperfection and for that starting out. So I'm just gonna share. And Beatrice says, I've started a project that I'm either going to add to a patch or I'm going to just finish as is. And I've just started, but I can show what I've done so far. Yeah, that would be great, Beatrice, if you want. Oh, vampire teeth. Oh, you're on mute, Beatrice.
Yeah, it's going to be a vampire mouth. I don't know if you can tell. I sketched out the mouth and I've started embroidering teeth, and that's how far this current project has gotten. But yeah. I
love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's both Halloween-y and also just like general cool. I don't know. I like vampires. I like the What We Do in the Shadows TV show.
I do too.
Oh my God.
I like that a lot.
So
yeah.
It's so subversive.
Yes. Yeah, it's a really good show.
Yeah.
I have progress to share, but I'm nowhere near finished my patch yet. Because I wasn't certain how it would work out. So I started with a practice piece just to get a sense of what it would be like and what stitches to use. And this is, the lighting is terrible. This is, it's going to be the queer flag with the chevrons. And then this is my actual one that I started on just a couple days ago. Yes, much better. Wow, the lighting is really weird. There we go. I really am not good with the freehand drawing and stuff. So Aubrey printed me out some flags, and she even put them into 7-centimeter circles for me, like exactly the size of my patch. So this is probably how I'm going to start most of my projects now, is with like a printout, and then use like transfer pencils to put the pattern onto my canvas.
And did you find that transfer pretty easy to do without a light box?
It's an actual transfer pencil. It's like a wax and pigment, and so you use a hot iron, which wasn't great on the felt. The transfer didn't come through really, really well on the felt, but it was enough that I could see it and then darken it myself. I think it would work way better on your usual like embroidery cloth, like the cottons and the linens that you gave us.
Yeah, and that's again like experiment, right? This is the opportunity to, I'll actually show you, I started working on the next project and have kind of a sample I started working on, which is the watercoloring and embroidery. But I actually did it on the watercolor paper that I gave you all. And I found after a little while, my wrists just hurt so much. And so from there, I thought, you know what, it's, I would love to do it again, but on the linen that I think I gave everyone. So it depends on how your wrists are and how much effort you want to put into embroidering. I think it'll come out in different effects if you do it on fabric, but I'll show you that later. So I'm just going to show, these, I'm going to show Hannah's patch. I'll just share my screen. Boo, boo, boo. So there's Hannah's beautiful patch. I really like the blanket stitch that you did around the edge of it. I really like the effect it gave it and the little stars. And I think there's a couple other, yeah, so Danny did Save the Bees. And I love the French knots. And I love the beautiful Aubrey's cheeky patch, which really got me well, because that was a brilliant idea. And I think that is it, yeah. Stop sharing. Cool. Any other kind of barriers that people have been facing in doing this work? So it sounds like kind of realizing expectations, which is always a practice of creativity. I know I do that with painting, of wanting a certain look, and then when I actually do it, it's never what I want it to be, but with practice I get better at it. And it sounds like having too much, not having a limited thought or theme can be a challenge. Oh, and just submitting.
I've been experiencing just disability stuff, the physical barriers. So I've been having a really bad flare in August, and I get a lot of pain in my hand with that. And really gripping that needle, like the amount of pressure I need to exert on the needle to really get it through both layers of the fabric is like a lot. And sometimes I just couldn't do the work, which was really frustrating.
Yeah. And thinking through maybe ways that you could do it, I wonder, of doing still embroidery, but maybe focusing on like cross stitch, or which already has those holes in it, so you don't have to poke it through. I'm also thinking of, have you ever tried needlepoint, Dawn?
How is that different than this?
So needlepoint is thicker wool, and it's like cross stitch, in which it has a grid, but it's a bigger grid. I'll show you what a needle.
Do you mean like tapestry wool with tapestry needles and the big canvas?
It can do tapestry wool.
Okay.
There's different types of needlepoint.
I always thought needlepoint and embroidery were interchangeable.
I mean, it's needlepoint. The difference is like cross stitch is just always X's, right? And sometimes you'll use like other types of embroidery, but cross stitch is a type of embroidery. A needlepoint is also a different type of embroidery that you're just, instead of doing it, crossing it, you're just going all in one direction, one diagonal.
Yeah, okay.
But it's often, the grid is quite big and the needle can actually be plastic instead of metal and much bigger. So that might be an option for you, for like the physical going through the material. It wouldn't be, you wouldn't be going through the material because there's a giant hole. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna follow up on that. That's a good suggestion. Thanks.
Yeah. So for you, Dawn, I would suggest not using the watercolor paper for the watercoloring and embroidery, because it might affect your hands. But like I said, it might also be a nice effect to use that linen and do it right onto the linen. So I'll show you a couple examples of some watercolor and embroidery folks that I like looking at. And then I'll show you kind of the example I've made that we can look at after. So I'll share my screen again. So, who is this again? This is, oh yeah. So this is an artist named Libby Williams, and they're, I believe, out of Amsterdam. So they use acrylics paints instead of watercolors, but as you can see, the background and the foreground are all beautiful acrylics, and then it's they did the housing in embroidery, and also it looks like the rocks, kind of just the mid ground area. So it creates this really three-dimensional look, which I really like in a landscape. Kind of creates this 3D effect. And then two other examples.
If you use acrylic, what you were talking about with painting directly on the fabric, you could excuse me, would actually be much more durable on the fabric than a watercolor.
It would, yeah. But here's an example of watercolor on a linen. And I love the way it bleeds, which like you can still do that, because that's why I thought with paper would be a better bleed. But obviously I've never done watercolor on linen, but it still has that lovely bleed that you can see. And again, that way you can accentuate the work. Let me see if I can increase. It's a little bit more blurry, but just that face really livens up and can add so much dimension to the piece that still, like, even the watercolor is quite beautiful itself, but just adding that extra dimension really adds another layer to it. And this one I just found by searching embroidery and watercolors, because I only have so many artists I can reference. And this artist, Kate Beale, she's from Victoria. And this one's a little bit harder to see where her embroidery is, but she's kind of making some edging around and kind of adding different elements. She does a lot of faces, and in fact, my example, I kind of looked at Kate Beale in inspiration of what she does for my example. She like makes these very kind of generic faces, and then she kind of adds elements such as hair. It's very simplistic, but I really like it. And she's actually an artist. She teaches here in Victoria. I haven't seen her name come up for a while, but she's from someplace in South America, I believe, Venezuela. And South America has a really big embroidery history and a lot of amazing instructors. So she kind of has that history, if you ever want to look her up, of a South American tradition of embroidery, which is really lovely. So I will show you the one I've been working on that I just started not too long ago. So this is, there we go. This is what I've worked on. So I kind of just did an outline of a figure. And so far the only embroidery I've done is kind of this headband, which was kind of supposed to be a woven grass. And then I used the same lovely kind of multicolored string as kind of the collar for the shirt. And then my hands got very tired of working on the paper. So I wanted to kind of create more of a shirt and kind of do a background. With this, the one thing I really learned is that for working with paper, you may want to pre-poke all of the holes. So it really having a design in mind first, drawing it and then pre-poking exactly where, that will help a lot with the wrists and make it a lot easier. It's kind of the same thing actually. I find if anyone has ever embroidered on denim, I find denim also very challenging to embroider on because it's just so thick. But there you can get a special denim. Ooh, is this gonna work? It's kind of working. And the other thing is to really make sure that you do the watercolor first, let it dry completely, and then do embroidery. I think if you watercolor after you do embroidery, it's going to actually bleed into the work. You can always work on certain sections and then go back. So if I wanted to go back and do watercolor more at the top or on the sides of this work, I could still do that. And maybe just be cautious of where I've already embroidered. But it kind of can create I was going to do French knot bow tie, and it can just add again that second dimension of what you want it to look like. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts of what they want to do with watercolor and embroidery?
I don't have any particular outcome in mind yet, but I'm really excited by the idea of putting the paint on the fabric and then working another layer with the texture of the fiber. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be very cool. Yeah. And I want to bring beads into it because why not? I'm already, you know.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the idea of like the 3D aspect with like possible landscape stuff with the watercolor. I think that has a really interesting possibility, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In the, I can't remember the name. The artist you showed us, I think last, I noticed in the photograph, it looks like that artist is using Liquitex paint.
Yes, it does look like that. Okay. I think the watercolor will still be fine. That liquid paint on textiles, the Liquitex, is quite expensive. And I think the watercolors, as long as you are not planning on like, I mean, the ones I gave you are the Crayola washable, so just maybe don't do it on something that you're planning to wash, like a piece of clothing. I think doing it on the linen and just finishing it and not washing it after, it will work out. Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea though of a landscape. I think that's a really good way of using both mediums and experimenting with it. And again, like that first example I showed you of the Amsterdam water, like having that layers, having the beads, of course, adding another layer, of dimension if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, so we have about a half hour before our guest, Elisa, comes. During this time, we could just sit and talk and embroider all together. I could teach you a couple more stitches. Or we could just sit quietly and all embroider together, which is also very nice. Any suggestions or?
I don't know. I'm just excited to be here, which I know is not a helpful answer.
Oh, I know some people like talking to one of the members who isn't here today, but they were saying how the only time they get to do embroidery is when they're in the sessions. So it makes a schedule for them. Mm-hmm. Beatrice says, I wouldn't mind learning a few new stitches. So I could teach a couple of those.
Sure.
One thing I didn't teach was actually a French knot, which maybe I can do that today. I'm just going to get some string from my cabinet. I'll be right back.
What are you working on today, Aubrey?
How's my sound if I try this? Is it awful?
It's better than last time. Okay. Yeah.
I'm all scattered. I'm just trying to like clean up my work area. So I'm just going through a bunch of papers and I'm putting them in the recycling while I'm listening. Keep my hands busy, but I think I'm just gonna embroidery wise, I think I'm just gonna play around with practice stitches on my chaotic sampler. It's too many things. I'm in 10 places today.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to be doing something outside this afternoon, but that got canceled because it's strange.
Yes.
Armageddon?
Feels Armageddon.
Yeah.
Yes. Have you seen the photos from down south? And
oh my goodness, with like the
Mars,
orange sky. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Whew.
Yeah, I was talking to my friend in the UK, and there's a bunch of like their stuff is going really bad with COVID, and their politics is just a clusterfuck as usual. But and so he was saying something like, "Oh yeah, at least you guys aren't, your prime minister isn't like lying to you and like trying to change the laws he made and stuff." And I'm like, well, at least the stuff around you isn't literally on fire.
And in fact, our prime minister lies a lot.
Yeah. But theirs is very special. They're like basically they're just going back on like all the Brexit stuff they said last year. They're like, well, let's just do something different. And Europe's like, what the fuck? Sorry, what?
Yeah. This has been a year of trials, I think. All the trials.
Mm-hmm.
I quite enjoy all of the sort of like memes about like who had like more murder hornets for January on their bingo.
Yes. 2020 bingo memes.
Yeah.
At least murder hornets seem to have kind of, I don't know, at least here they haven't been a thing. I hope.
Yeah. Well, there was the initial freak out. I mean,
yeah.
Aubrey and I are on a Facebook group called Collaborative Gardening for Food Security. And, it's astonishing how when the news hits, that news cycle creates hysteria, right? Because for the first couple of weeks, people were posting pictures of various wasps and hornets and freaking out. And we're all just like, that's just a paper wasp.
And the whole thing was just that on the mainland, there had been a sighting in the fall. So they may have overwintered on the mainland, and people should look out for them in one specific area. And then people were just, science reporting is not done very well, and then people...
No. So I've spent most of my time on the various groups. There's 4 or 5 Victoria-based gardening groups with huge memberships. And every time the wasps come up, I go in and I go, if you're not in immediate danger, please consider the ecological importance of these wasps. Right? Yeah, I'm like, I've watched the wasps in my yard and they go after all the caterpillars and stuff. Like, I'm like, please clean my plants.
People get in a panic about wasps. I mean, if you're allergic, I get that.
Yeah.
But people are just like, oh my God, I have to kill them all. I have to destroy this nest. And I'm like, if you just like walk around it and don't like touch them, they kind of just want to do their own thing.
Oh, I'm gonna get one more thing. Claire, since you just joined us, we've been talking about doing watercolor and embroidery, and now I'm just going to teach a couple stitches before our guest Elisa comes at 2 to talk to us about. So Elisa is part of a non-for-profit called Community Microlending, and they do a program where they teach entrepreneurial skills. So Community Microlending has been the sponsor for these workshops through a grant that I received through the BC Arts Council. So this is all happening, but I forgot one. It's so weird being in a place where you don't even know where all your stuff is, so you have to guess.
Oh my God, I know.
So I will also be right back because I also need some scissors, because that would be helpful right now.
I couldn't find my scissors either. I've been using my Swiss Army knife.
Oh no.
My secret is to have like 8 pairs of scissors, and they're everywhere in the house, and there's always
Yeah.
somewhere.
Well, I like Regan, I moved very suddenly because of something that happened, and it was like, I don't know where any of my things are.
Maybe I'll embroider a wasp.
Yes.
So I have like my little ditch garden, and I also like follow those groups, but I feel like I should post my video. I did this like just on my phone. I found this wasp eating this caterpillar, and it's so gross. The caterpillar is like, the wasp's going to town, and the caterpillar's trying to crawl away, and then the wasp flies off with a piece of it, and like, it was very nature documentary.
It's the circle of life. It's beautiful.
Circle of life, yeah.
The amount of damage the caterpillars have done to my vegetables this year has been astronomical. So yeah. I'm all for wasp, team wasp.
Me too, I'm team wasp too.
Okay, so let's learn a French knot. See. That shall be good. So for a French knot, you want to again start from the back, make sure you have a knot on the back of your string.
You switch your camera. How does that work? Because I've got your face really big, but your picture is really small.
Okay. Oh, on your end or my end?
So when I'm looking, you can pin one of the. You can like pin one of the things so that it comes up.
Yeah, so if you look at the video itself, there'll be 3 dots that come up. And if you click on those, you can click on pin video.
Got it.
That will make it happen.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll come up. I'll just let me know if it doesn't come up too well. It's in this weird precariousness. So we came up. I'm actually going to wrap. Ooh, this is going to be hard. There we go. I'm going to, as it fully pulls out. That's not helpful at all. So with this one, you want to take both of your hands. And what I'm going to do, I just want to make sure you can see it, is wrap the needle, wrap the thread around the needle twice. And we're going to keep it very taut with the other hand. And we're going to go into the same place that we came up from. As I don't do that. And the whole time we want to keep it, how do I do this in a better way? It's hard wanting to use two hands. Is there a way? Maybe can I do this? Ooh, maybe that's better. Is that going to be better? No, it will not. Sorry. Let's see if this will come through. No, it's not going to.
You're not in the frame.
I'm not. Oh, yeah. Okay. What I'm gonna do is kind of hold it with my teeth, because I'm hoping, or maybe I can just do it like this. Ooh, like that. Ooh. Okay. My first problem is I need to make sure the knot is more knotty, so it doesn't pop out. So I've come up, I'm going to wrap it around twice. So you have the two wraparounds. I'm holding it tight with the other hand, and I'm going to put it back into the same hold, or same hole, and keeping it tight. Ooh, which I didn't do, so this is not going to come out. Sorry, it's just hard to hold the camera. Try to do a French knot.
Would it be easier to just sort of hold it in front of the webcam somehow?
That's what I was trying to do, but maybe that can be my next. Here, let's try that. Okay, let's see if this is gonna work. Ooh, see if I can do it backwards.
Hard mode.
Using my mouth as a holder. Boop, boop. So wrapping it on, damn it, as it pops out. Maybe it's best if I just show a good video of this. One, two. Backwards, and then I'll. This is, oh, it kind of came out. So I'm not doing the best French dots here. So pulling, wrapping around twice, putting it back in the same hole. And before you want to put it back in the same hole, you want to pull down so that the the wraparounds are at the very bottom of the needle. And then pull. So that's a little bit better of a French knot. What I might actually do is just show a video because I feel like it's hard to do just because you need two hands. So pulling, wrapping around twice, putting it back in the same hole, but first pulling down so that the wraparound has gone to the very bottom, and then pulling. That first French knot is not very good French knot. Ignore that French knot. What I'm going to do is actually show a video because I feel like it's hard to see exactly what I'm doing. Here we go.
Today we're going to learn how to make the French knot. French knots can be used effectively to create flowers, the center of flowers, and anywhere you want a little dot on your fabric. To make my French knots, I'm using a milliner needle, which is slightly different from your regular embroidery needle. You can see that the regular embroidery needle has a longer eye. And
there we go. There we go. Screen share. Share.
The same width as the eye, which makes it easier to pass through the knot. So you're going to start by bringing your working thread up to the front of the fabric here, holding on to it with your non-stitching hand. Place your needle against the working thread, and then wrap your thread around the needle twice. Take the tip back down next to where you came out, but not in the same hole, just right next to it. And then holding on to the working thread, supplying a little bit of tension, you want to pull your needle through the knot. Don't let go of the thread yet. Hold on to it. And then as you get close to the end, you can let go of the thread. So let's do that again. We're going to bring the thread to the front of the fabric, hold on to it with your non-stitching hand and place the needle against it. Wrap around twice. Move the tip of the needle down and around next to where you just came out. Leave a little space in the fabric. Hold on to the working thread. You don't have to yank it, just hold it. And then pull your thread through. And as you come close to the end, let go. Now you don't have to keep a lot of tension on that working thread. You just want.
So does that make sense? Yeah, that was a much better instructions than what I could show in my camera.
What did she say about the type of needle? Like right at the beginning, she mentioned something about a different type of needle.
Yeah, so there's different needles that you could do it with. So I think she was using a tapestry needle for it rather than an embroidery needle. Cool. So let's learn other stitches. I think I have my PowerPoint of the other stitches that we're going to learn. Oh, Beatrice says, I think she said a milliner's needle, which I'm not sure what a milliner's needle is. Does anyone know?
Miller's is hat making. I think it's a very long one.
Okay. It maybe is made for a thicker, since hat making, I would think it would be either felt or leather. So I want to open up PowerPoint. Ooh, what else were we gonna do? Oh, let's do a spider web. So spider. So with a spider web, do I have a pencil? Maybe I'll just do a non-pencil. So a spider web, I'll just show you a picture of it so you know what it looks like. It's also called a wagon wheel. Images. Wagon wheel. So basically they look like woven roses, but sometimes they're called spider webs, sometimes wagon wheels, sometimes, I mean, it looks like a rose to me. And it is a woven stitch, which I don't think we've learned any woven stitches yet. So to start out with, you want to start in the middle of whatever you're going to be working with. So the exact center of the wheel. And we're going to do, again, how large you want your wagon wheel to be. Just to note that with the wagon wheel, you may want to have all 6 of your threads, because as that example showed, I'm using like 3 threads right now. It's going to take a lot of thread and a long time to complete it. So you might want to take a little bit less time and use all 6 of your threads. So I'm going to just do a short one. And we're basically just going to do a straight stitch. And we're going to, I believe there's 5. Am I right about that? 1, 2, 3, 4. They did 9 there. As long as it's an odd number. So you want to create spokes basically. So I'm going to just do 5 spokes. So we're creating 5 spokes, always going back to that center. Again, it would be better if I drew out the entire circle and kind of divided up into an even pie of where the spokes will be, because I think this one's going to be a little funky, especially since that was a lot longer one. So it's looking like a starfish right now. And all you do is come up right next to the center, because we just came down from the center. So if I brought it back up in the center, it would actually just undo the stitch. So coming up right next to one of the spokes, and we're literally going to weave. So it's going to be every other spoke up and down. So I'm going to choose to go up on this spoke, and then I'm going to ignore this spoke and go up underneath the next one. And again, ignore this spoke, work on this one and go underneath. And because now I've already gone full circle, this is the original one I went under. Now I'm going to ignore it and go under the next one. So it'll kind of create this own pattern as you go. And the weaving techniques are quite fun to do because it's kind of taking the basic elements of weaving that you get to experiment on the embroidery. But as you can tell, it's starting to get three-dimensional in that center. But again, because I made the spokes a little uneven, this one's quite a bit longer. It's going to be a little bit of a funky one. There's my thread. And then if you run out of thread during this time, which you might do if you're doing a really big one of these, you can just try to, I'll show you. So you'll actually want to put the needle right underneath, if you can, the rows that you've been making. And then, as I pull, it really pulls fast. There we go.
You're out of the frame again.
Oh, am I? Sorry.
There you go. Okay.
So sometimes if you pull really tight, it will actually create a line, which it won't help with the weaving look of it. So you just want to make sure you tuck it kind of back. But what I did was put it literally underneath the rows. And then when you start, again, you can know that this is the last one I went underneath. So remember that before you put in your new thread. And then skip this one. So you want to bring up, and I'll show you. So my last one I went underneath was this spoke. So let's say I have a new thread. I'm going to come up and underneath this spoke. So I'll come up right next to this spoke. So it will eventually be hidden underneath as it gets more and more three-dimensional. And then just continue that pattern of weaving every other one.
It'd be cool to do this in multiple colors.
Yeah, or even one of those DMC threads that are like rainbow. That would
With
be
a gradient? Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see, there's a couple new messages. Aubrey says millionaire. Oh, I can't say it. Millionaire. Oh my goodness. It's also called a straw needle. And have a smaller roundish eye and a shaft that is the same thickness as the eye. The eye does not bulge at the top of the needle and a sharp tip. Millionaire's needle quite long compared to the other needles listed above. Thank you. And then yeah, Beatrice, thank you. Yeah, so it is just weaving back and forth, and eventually this is a one that does take a little bit longer to do. Ooh, low pattern. Okay. It's gonna work. Come on. Sorry, my video just stopped working. So many technical difficulties today. Okay. Great. And actually, Elisa has just joined us as I just fixed this.
There we go. Hi.
Hello. We were just learning different stitches.
Incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, any questions about either the French knot or the wagon wheel before we move on?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So I want to invite Elisa here to speak about community microlending, and I'm going to talk about entrepreneurial options in Victoria, in case any of you want to turn your art practice into a side hustle or a business. Yeah, anything else I need to do to introduce you?
No, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Shall I dive in?
Yeah.
All right. One sec. I have my camera on now. Hello. I'm going to turn it off though, just to support my internet connection. But this is me, and it's really great to be here. I'm going to present. Oh, could you please enable me to screen share?
I'm going to make you the host.
Okay, great.
There you go.
There we go. Application. Okay. And so screen is sharing. Checking before I go.
Yes, it is.
Excellent. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So opening slide is the Community Microlending logo. It's our name in text, but the O in micro is an orange ribbon in a loop. And we'll get into the symbolism that partway through the presentation. But first and foremost, thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. It's been awesome to support this workshop, yeah, I'm looking forward to telling you a bit more about what we do and exploring potential ways that we can support you moving forward. Before I say anything else, who am I? My name is Alicia Glover. I use the pronouns she, her, hers. I'm third generation settler. My ancestors are Austrian, Czech, Scottish, and English. I was born and raised on the Lekwungen and Wasanic territories, and I currently live on the traditional unceded territories of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, today known as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. I identify as queer and as a person with challenges with mental health. I'm here today as the Executive Director of Community Microlending. I'm also wearing my own artist supporting hat. I am a spoken word performer and a workshop facilitator. I also co-produce the Victorious Voices Youth Festival, which is a spoken word festival and tournament for high school age poets on the South Islands. And I'm also the former coordinator for Raising Voices, which is a poetry in schools program. So I'm here today and joining you all as someone who started as an artist and was introduced to, the skills and tools of business planning and entrepreneurship later on, and has retroactively realized that the two can really support each other. The plan for this afternoon together is first to really dive in and tell you a bit more about community microlending. We are, so that's including a number of upcoming programs that may be of interest to folks, as well as approaches to supporting your art, and then opening up to any final questions and opportunities for discussion. I say final questions because I've built in a chance to ask questions throughout the presentation as well. I also, if there are any images on the screen, I commit to describing those to you. This presentation is mostly text, and that was to support future use of it. So you can refer back to it after, and hopefully it will make as much or perhaps more sense than it did this time around. So let's start at the beginning. About my community microlending. So we are a nonprofit society that was founded in 2009, and we serve the South Island. Our mission is to help people improve their financial well-being, and we do this by connecting people with the resources, training, and support they need to move from idea to action. And through our work, we help grow vibrant, resilient communities, one entrepreneur at a time. Our clients are people who are looking to start or grow a business or to take training that will improve their income situation. And as I'll emphasize throughout our afternoon together, business is a very broad term. It's really, and there's no, it can be as small or as large as whatever fits your goals and your needs. So how do we do this work? Three main approaches. First and foremost, as our name suggests, through our loans. Also through our programs, and then for the support that helps people who are maybe between either the loans or the actual training programs. So first, about our loans. Our loan programs, so just moving things out of the way, our loan programs connect local lenders with local borrowers, and this is to facilitate small loans for business startup and expansion, or for training that is related to your employment. And we do this as what's known as a peer-to-peer intermediary, which is a complex word, and we'll explain it further in the next slide. But that means all the funds borrowed are from and invested in the community. So the money comes from the community and is reinvested into the community. The shortest, another way to put it is we are not a bank. We're a facilitator. Our lenders are based in BC and are people who want to make a patient investment with a return of 2%. And our borrowers are people with barriers to traditional financing, who are working to build a better future for themselves their families and their communities. And at this time, we provide loans to borrowers based on Southern Vancouver Island. And I would add the Gulf Islands as well, but folks in this region of the country. So a bit more about how this works. So on the screen, there is a diagram. The center of that diagram is a circle with a $sign in the middle, and it's the largest circle. Branching out from that large circle are 5 lines that connect to smaller circles. And this is intended to show you how it is we raise our loans. So the person at the middle would be the borrower, who has, say, for example, needs $5,000 to start their business. And the people on the edges contributing those funds could be contributing as little as $250, or lending $500 or $1,000, but as many lenders as it takes to raise the full amount of the loan. CML is the person in between both the lenders and the borrowers, and this is to protect the borrower from, and their privacy essentially from the lenders, and to manage all the admin that goes with repaying the loan in a way that's standard and supported and as easy as possible. So it's a unique approach. Other folks who use a similar model would be Kiva, if you've heard of them or are familiar with them. And I'd say they're the largest other group doing this. There's also a for-profit version called Lending Loop, if you've come across that as well. But I'd say we're one of the only nonprofit microlenders using this approach in Canada. But a bit more about our loans. So what can you get a loan for? You can get a business loan that helps you start, and those can be from $250 to $5,000. If you've been operating for at least 1 year, you can apply for an expansion loan of up to $10,000. And then we also have training loans for programs or courses that will improve your employment or your self-employment, and those can be for up to $5,000. Our loans, the terms of our loans, so there's no fee. It's 5% interest total, with 2% going to the lender, 3% going to us, and that's to cover banking fees. Really, that's about all it covers. we don't make money off of these loans, and there's no penalty for early repayment. We actually encourage that. There's also no penalty if you have trouble repaying the loan for any reason. We fundamentally these loans are flexible, and we will work with any borrower to make sure that the repayment plan is within reach. So it's very common for folks to have reduced payments, so paying $10 or $20 a month, to pause payments for some time due to personal circumstances, or come up with an alternative longer term plan. And we do not, because we're not a bank, we're not a credit union, we don't report to Equifax or any of the credit bureaus, so we can do this without impacting your credit score in any way. Really, we approach our loans as relationships, and we, as long as folks are communicating what it is they need, we are happy to accommodate that. So, who do we lend to? As mentioned before, people and businesses based on the South Island with barriers to getting financing anywhere else. Folks, and that means we anticipate the things that banks would not support. So if we lend to people who have poor or no credit history, who may be relying on fixed income, who may have a criminal record, or may need to be taking a program or a course where there are no student loans or they're just not enough. And essentially what we look for is a clear, strong plan, not a fancy plan, not a long plan, not, a plan somebody else that, it's your plan essentially, but we want it to be clear and strong. And we look for someone who has the commitments, the skill and the capacity to do what it is they say they're going to do. So, you're the expert in what it is you want to be doing next in your business or whatever it is you're looking to create. And really we need to see that, you're set up well to do those things, including bringing in outside support for the elements you already know ahead of time that you need support with. So you don't have to do it all yourself. We just, that goes back to that plan, that it's clear that you have what you need to do what you want to do. Another way of summarizing our loan program is we are essentially the local grassroots, not evil lender of last resort. So, and I shouldn't laugh at my own jokes, but Zoom's awkward, and so I'm going to do that. So what does it take to apply for a loan with us? Again, solid business idea or an existing small business. If you're looking for a business loan, or if you're looking for a training loan, the commitment to take a training program or course, to acquire or upgrade your skills that will lead or support your employment. And then really the bulk of the work is in the application package. And so that includes a business or training plan, your budget and cash flow, letters of reference, a consumer disclosure, which is not looking for your credit score. It doesn't impact your credit. It just gives us a summary of what your monthly bill commitments are. And that's not to penalize you. It's just to make sure that, it's to help us figure out, for example, what your monthly payment would be. A criminal record check, though that's not always needed. And again, if you were to be found with a criminal record, that's okay. And proof of enrollment in a course or program, if that's what you're asking for. And then the final step is that package is reviewed by the loan committee, and they make a decision as to whether or not you receive the loan. I will say in that last step, well, actually in all steps, our team is here to support folks in completing all pieces of the application package, free of charge and with no attachment into to whether or not you get a loan. But really the attachment and the focus is on that you are building a strong plan and getting crystal clear on what it is you're trying to do and how much you actually need to ask for. And often through that process, we can identify other cheaper free ways to find what you need that you may have initially thought you needed to get a loan to do. And by the time it goes to the committee, you're supported by the person who worked on your application with you, and they are there as your champion. And really the committee's there just to ask questions and, how can I say this? It's another part of the learning process. So again, their interest is in you being successful. And so they often the questions, the feedback, it's very rare that you get a no. It's really, okay, well, what about this? Or what's another way we can structure this so that you're not, say, taking on $10,000 all at once, but maybe $1,000 and then later on a bit more, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just another layer of support to help you with that next plan. That said, the very first step is not the application package, it's to have a call or a virtual meeting with us to talk about your idea. Excuse me. And you're welcome to reach out. Sorry, I have asthma too, and it's a smoky day. Excuse me. So you're welcome to reach out and once I'm going to mute and have a drink of water. Thank you. So you're welcome to reach out and just tell us, let us know what you're thinking about, or say, hey, this is, I'm thinking about this. Does this sound like a fit? Or where do you recommend we start? And we're happy to have that chat without even a loan being on the table. It's something we do all the time, and I'll get into in a future slide. So that was a lot of information, but first opportunity. Do any of you have any questions regarding what I've shared so far? And feel free to share them in the chat as well. I can have a look. Oh, here we go. I don't have the question the answer to Beatrice's question, which is great. I wish I should be joining this as well.
I can answer that after.
Excellent. Okay, great. Any questions or comments too? Feel free to unmute yourself too if you'd like to ask your question aloud.
Sort of general, because I don't have a business plan at this point, but one of the things that we had talked about with this workshop we're doing is how do you potentially market your artwork? And so I know there's there's a lot of selection for online sales venues. Like there's just a lot. And I wondered if it falls within your organization's ability to actually advise, like which, is it Etsy? Is it eBay? Is it like, who's reliable? Who's the best environment to try and sell online with? Is that something you guys do?
Yeah, great question. So it is, and then we do the annoying coaching thing of asking you what your needs are and what you're looking for. Because there are pros and cons to, and actually I had this conversation with an artist looking to sell their work through different platforms yesterday. Essentially it's a blend of being available to help you work through the options that you have, the options that you're considering, and support you in at least figuring out which platform to start with or to test. Because there's pros and cons to all the different ones, and part of it would depend on what your longer term plan is for selling your art. So and what parts you want to have control over, what parts you don't want to worry about. That was a consideration yesterday. So but happy to have that chat, absolutely. And it doesn't have to have any. So is the short answer. Yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we won't be like this one's the best, but we have a chat about what your needs are, what you're considering, what you don't want, like what are your non-negotiables, and then go from there.
Okay, cool. It's just that even just starting the inquiry is really a huge barrier. Just there's so much information, and
definitely
the legalese can be really overwhelming when you're trying to read through terms of service and stuff.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm writing that down. Thank you.
And next week too, we'll have a Straven who's a local artist who uses Etsy, so they might be able to talk about their experience of, at least with using Etsy and selling online,
yes.
and in stores. So
that's another piece is we always we advise folks to talk to people in your community who may be one or two steps down the road towards doing what you'd like to be doing. And so essentially interviewing folks who are already using those platforms. So it's awesome that you're connecting with Traven. Okay. Other questions? All right. I will shift to, and it's okay if you have questions about loans later on, that's also fine. And I will shift to the next portion. So the next thing to talk about is programs and workshops. So yes, we offer loans, but we realize that, and in our own entrepreneurial way, is that folks are coming to us for loans, but we're really receiving more benefit from the support on the applications and looking for support in building that business plan, and that the loan was really the last piece and not necessarily core to them actually succeeding or not, or bringing their idea to life or not. So over the years, we've added training programs, workshops, events, and other ways to support people who are looking to do exactly what you just described. And the goal there is to connect people with the knowledge, tools, and the networks that they need to bring an idea to life. And as mentioned before, how does this work for us? That means we coach you through that loan application process, to build a strong plan. And again, that's without attachment to whether or not you move forward with the application for the loan. That's on you. We take debt very seriously, and no joke, we don't make money off of our loans. It's really just there because nobody else is offering loans like this, and we first at some point folks need some money to do what they want to do. But the bulk of our activity is actually running entrepreneurship training programs, and we do this several times a year. And the next slide, I'll talk a bit more about those. We also run one-off events and workshops that connect folks with helpful tools and info. An example is when the pandemic disrupted how business was operating. For whatever reason, we partnered with the Downtown Victoria Business Association to run a series, Ask an Expert series, and those included sessions like reopening restaurants or reopening retail, or sessions that brought in lawyers, accountants, HR professionals, And the goal was to put people in front of the experts who had the information and give them a chance to ask questions, including anonymously, so that they could get access to the advice that they may not otherwise have access to. And finally, we very regularly, we work in community. So we refer clients to other programs, workshops, or resources that may be a good fit. And that may include, so the Entrepreneurs with Disabilities program from Community Futures. They have business advisors, and we have in the past had several clients go between us and them to develop that plan and eventually get the resources they need to launch. So launch or expand. So about our programs, so the goal is to really strengthen your financial literacy and entrepreneurial capacity. So what that means is we're going to teach you how to identify and test a business idea, how to identify and empathize with your target customer, and how to reach them. So that, again, back to that platform piece. So, the more you understand who your target customer is and where they are, what their needs are, it helps make decisions like, what platform do I need to be using? It won't be all the info, but it's information that can help you focus and make those decisions. It'll help our programs, all of them will help you build a basic business plan and using the tools of entrepreneurship, which emphasize not just one static plan that's wordy and sits on a shelf, but is something action-oriented that lets you build something with what you have, to test it, to learn from learn from testing it, and then just to repeat. So it's building in that capacity to learn and grow and change as a business person at whatever scale you're at, depending on what your evolving needs may be, and also your evolving interests and the feedback you're actually getting from the people you want to be selling to. The financial literacy, what do we mean by that? We mean working with budgets and cash flows, which as a poet, this did not come natural to me at all. Even with the festival budgets, I don't know how we pulled it off, but we always had a profit somehow. And but ultimately what that does, no matter how large or small, whatever the size of what it is you're trying to do, becoming friends with numbers puts the control back. It brings the control back to you and helps you start to plan or identify ways to get what you need and over time. And finally, how to market your business and how to communicate your business to others. Two programs we have coming up that may be of interest to folks. So we have, first of all, for anyone who's between 16 years of age and 29 years of age, we are offering a cohort of Rise, which is a national charity that helps people who self-identify as having a challenge with mental health. Their program is called the Enterprising Youth Plus program. It's an 8-week online program starting October 6th. It'll be on Tuesdays from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. It combines online learning with virtual coaching that will connect you with peers and coaches. I'll walk you through how to build a lean business plan based on your strengths. And grads are eligible for a $300 startup grant. So not alone, you don't have to pay it back. And there's actually no pressure to actually launch. If you do all of the pieces necessary, you receive that grant. And again, to be eligible for this program, you have to be between 16 and 29 at the time of enrolling. Have a practical idea to start or grow your own for-profit small business. And that could include very, very, very part-time. Examples of past very successful projects. Someone designed, built a prototype for a intention card deck. And so they were producing the art for this. They were producing the user guide, and the program helped them figure out a plan for how to start. They had incredible ideas, and it was a deeply inspired project, but they weren't sure on where to begin. And so that's one example of an idea that's gone through this, as well as others that you may think of as small business, which would include food carts, personal products, etc. So the last eligibility piece for that or two pieces, you are asked to self-identify as having an experience with mental health or addiction issue. having experienced a mental health or addiction issue, or have difficulty accessing traditional bank financing for your small business. That one so we are offering that piece, and RISE has their own loan program for entrepreneurs who identify as having challenges with mental health. And but they are very careful to not, this is not a sale, it's not an 8-week sales pitch for that. It's just there if you need it, which is a value adding if you're looking to really expand. And then the next program, which is, it's for all ages, is Reconnect with Entrepreneurship, which is a 12-week program that will be delivered through Google Classroom and through Zoom. And it will walk you through how to use the Lean Canvas to build a lean business plan. And you can either join as a drop-in, so workshopping different parts of your business. So the Lean Canvas is an entrepreneurship tool that breaks out all the way, all the different pieces of a business plan into like one grid. It's kind of like a paint by numbers type thing. And so you can either learn about the pieces you're interested in, or you can sign up for the full course and be eligible for a $100 grant. And the eligibility for that is self-identifying as having a disability, have interest in having a small business of any size, so side hustles of any size. And again, it's all ages. Any questions about our programs? Okay.
It's me again.
Yes, excellent.
I don't know if can you see us? Or
No, I can't.
Okay.
Oh yeah, thank you. I cannot see you. So
okay. My name's Dawn. Hi.
Hi.
So the second program you mentioned, I might be eligible for that program. I am on PWD, which is a very fixed, limited income. And my main concern about doing anything that earns money is that if I exceed my annual allowable income, then they claw back my benefits. It got really complicated because they forced me onto CPP. And so now I have 2 separate annual income caps. And the one at the federal level one is actually way, way smaller and less generous than the provincial one. So it just really kind of froze me in my tracks. I was like, I have no idea how to proceed. I don't even know if is there any point in investing my time and my effort, into making any kind of money at this point. Who do you think I should talk to about that? Who should I ask?
Yes. First and foremost, so I guess what we can help you with is, first of all, I talk to whoever you're working with regarding those I'm blanking on the name, those programs. But on our end, what we do, and we've worked with entrepreneurs with disability before, folks on fixed incomes, where that's a challenge, and that's where the cash flow is your good friend. And so we would sit down and enter those maximums into the sheets, and then essentially plan backwards from there, and make sure that you're not exceeding those. Informally, we very regularly work with entrepreneurs who are also working with cash and working around those limits in a way that fits. We can't promote that publicly, but we do that.
Right. Yeah, because that's the reality, right?
That's reality.
There are a lot of people out there going, wow, I can't report this money. So. Yes,
and that's, and to be very candid with you, say you were in that position and you had cash income and were looking to apply for a loan and wanted to demonstrate a capacity to pay, we would consider confidentially any cash income that you would be bringing forward when applying. And just based on what you're saying, we don't need bank statements or anything like that. We're trying to help folks get what they need, but without hurting them, right? So but there are ways to figure that out, and really what we would see that as a constraint to work with. So it's like, okay, so if you can make this much, in this way, that's reported in these ways, how can you set up your payout schedules? Back to that platform thing, are there platforms where you can schedule when you're paid out for any income you're receiving on the site? There's strategies you could put in place to sort that out. So
That is very helpful. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. It's it's not a fair, I don't need to say this to y'all, but we are like, it's not a fair system. So willing to figure out a way to work around it.
And Beatrice had a question in the chat
Yes.
of
Okay.
if you could repeat the name of the program you mentioned.
Oops, going back the wrong way. Here we go. It is Reconnect with Entrepreneurship. And what I'll do a follow-up email and send it to Regan with the information on how to sign up for those.
And just a note that I did the first program, the youth enterprise, and found it really helpful to come up with a business plan. My business plan was not art related. It was disability consultancy, which I did end up getting a business license, though I have not done anything with that business license. But it's a good backup to have in these very strange times of needing possible second incomes, or just having a strategy in case work ends. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Other questions about the programs? Okay, so ways to support your arts. I believe, so it's from in our conversation in prepping for this presentation, it sounds like half of you may be interested, maybe ready to go and figure out how to generate revenue from your art or your craft, and the other half maybe not so much. So this is a really broad introduction, and really it's where we like folks to start, and to just help folks to start thinking about this. And I'd say the next few slides are the results of working with like folks who are just starting out and trying to figure out what to do next, as well as working with early career writers and performers who are crossing the threshold from creating for their art as a source of expression and starting to step into creating income from that in a way that is accessible for them. So I'm a project and admin assistant to a professional writer with disabilities, and so a lot of this too, it's pretty wild actually how some of the basic business planning can really help with bring the structure and the focus, and I'm not saying like mental focus, but breaking things down into smaller pieces, so what needs to happen next. Maybe not ultimately, which is okay because none of us really do know that, but have a sense of how to slowly grow in the direction that you'd like to grow with your art, and in a way that can support you as well. So with that said, I just want to say, like, entrepreneurship can really serve your art. You don't need to want to make $1 million to be an entrepreneur. One of my favorite definitions of entrepreneurship is from Howard Stevenson, and it's entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity beyond resources controlled. So again, that's entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity beyond resources controlled. So when I read this, when I came across this definition, it just blew my mind. I had never identified as an entrepreneur really until I saw this, and I was raised by a single mom. Like, talk about creation of opportunity. Like, we lived in public housing. Like, creation of opportunity beyond resources controlled. It's a creative process. So, and that pursuit piece as well. So opportunities, you get to decide what that means, what it is you're pursuing. And it could be to create art. It could be to exchange art. It could be to sell your art and, to be compensated for that. That is really up to you to define. And anyone else who says that that's not up to you to define is probably trying to sell you something. So, and so, with that in mind, the best place to begin is to build from your strengths and to embrace the plan. So, I mean, we all have weaknesses or what parts, things that it's like, oh, I always do that thing. Like I'm a procrastinator. This is me speaking from experience. I'm a procrastinator. I get overcommitted, but okay, if I step back and look at my strengths and build a plan around those, the rest of it can really fall into place. So plans, business plans, lay out what you're working with and what you want to do next. So even no matter how small it may be, maybe it's a single project that you're looking to create, but you know, letting yourself sit down and create a basic, even bullet point plan can help you bring in the resources you need to do that. When you build a business plan, you build a plan, really it's a plan to do. It's a plan to make, and it's a plan to create. And the best plans build from where you are now and work with what you have. So, you know, that's, I'd say the folks who are most likely to enact their plans are doing that. And plans can be designed with your goals and your values in mind. And they can, and really when it comes down to it, they help you get very clear on what it is you need so that you can then ask for it or apply for it. So you can either ask for it through trade or barter. You can ask for it through selling things and generating revenue so that you can go get the things you need, or you can apply for it for, you know, a grant or another opportunity, residency, sponsorship. Maybe it's for materials. You could approach folks who have or are selling what you need, and you can ask for it or apply for some sort of partnership or a way to get those things that you need. So, but step one, before you get into all that nitty gritty, is to start identify potential business ideas. So, you know, ideas that can help you get what you need to do what you want to do. I had to practice that last piece a couple of times because even though I wrote it, it was a mouthful, but it's really just ideas that can help you get what you need so that you can do what you want to do. So I remember saying I said like, oh, there's no way I could fill an hour, but I have one last exercise before we wrap up. And so I invite you to either on a piece of paper or however it is you take notes, or even just to reflect on it without writing it down. I have a couple of prompts to help you start, you know, identifying potential ideas, so potential business ideas. So with the agreement that it's the first thought that comes to mind is the best thought, so don't edit them yet. You're just brainstorming. What comes to mind when I offer the following prompts? So I'll take 5 seconds to gather what you need to either write this down or settle yourself so you can reflect on this. I'll do one breath in and one breath out. Exhale. And the first one, people tell me I'm good at. People tell me I'm good at. And next one, it's okay if you fall into a prompt and it's really taking you down a course of thought, feel free to ignore the next prompt. You can always come back to these. Again, you'll have access to this presentation. So, I'm very comfortable when I am very comfortable when I am I am skilled at I am skilled at be your hype person on that one. I am truly happy when I am truly happy when my hobbies include. What are the things you do? My hobbies include. And then step 2 is for each of your answers, come up with possible business ideas. So I'd say for this one, pick your favorite, just for time's sake. So, but if you're to do this on your own as an extended process, you'd go through and start to just brainstorm different ideas that could be related to that. So as an example, I would circle public speaking and performing. So possible business ideas could be teaching workshops, being a recording artist, booking shows, going on tour, making videos and posting them on YouTube, getting grants to produce more work. And then of the ideas I thought of, I would circle which one excites me most. So you don't have to know how you're going to do it yet, but which one excites you the most? Because there's nothing worse than building an intricate plan for something that doesn't excite you, because it's unlikely to happen. If you're anything like me, maybe I'm projecting, but let yourself pick the thing that excites you the most. So if I was to do this, I'd say booking shows and going on tour. I'd circle that one. And then I'd think of the first 2 steps that I would need to move me in that direction. Well, if I was to book shows and go on tour, first of all, step 1 would be to write and rehearse more poems. And step 2 is to interview touring performers and my dream show, just to figure out how to book a tour. So I have no idea how to book a tour. That's where I'm starting. So what would I have to, what's the quickest way to get the information I need? Is talk to people who are already doing it. So step 1, step 2. And with that, guess what? I've already started my business planning. So which is great. So I'm curious for what were some of the ideas that the folks came up with. And you can either, please feel free to unmute yourself. And a reminder, I can't see your camera, but so please feel free to jump in or to share them in the chat if there's some. It can either be the business idea or your answer to any of the prompts. If you'd like to just brag about your skills, now's the time to do it. Please do. That'd be awesome. So no pressure either. All right. Yeah, no pressure at all. So
I think for a lot of folks, just talking previously is like selling art somehow, of
right.
Be it embroidery, be it another medium. Yeah, it seems like that's a common of trying to at least make a income that can pay for the supplies and time needed. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, and so that in mind, a prompt that may support that, if that's the main activity, is who could you, I guess, what could you possibly be producing and selling? So yes, it'd be using embroidery or other similar craft, but what would the items be? And I guess who could you potentially be selling those to? So
so it's Dawn again.
Great.
I had a sort of an inkling of an idea. It was actually just suggested to me, and I've sort of percolated it in the back of my brain. What's interesting though is it doesn't really particularly relate to my answers to any of your questions. So I'm like, on the one hand, I have this potential business idea, and on the other hand, it doesn't really match the stuff I wrote down. So
okay.
I joined the Spinners and Weavers Guild a year ago, and I am a complete novice spinner and weaver, and I'm actually just now taking a beginning weavers course with support from the guild. They're amazing. And one of the first things someone said to me when I said, I think I want to do tapestry weaving, was they suggested that I should make altar cloths and wall hangings for I'm a UU, I'm a Unitarian Universalist, and our symbol is a chalice with a flame. And we don't have any other symbols. It's very iconic, and it's pretty much the only symbol we use commonly internationally. And apparently, I didn't know this, there's an entire trade in artwork of the chalice symbol. And the first thing that my minister said to me is, oh, you should make tapestries of the chalice and sell them to UUs. And I was like, oh, okay. Had not ever like registered that was a thing, had never been looking online. So I followed up a little bit, and she's not wrong. There are hundreds and hundreds of people selling chalice artwork. And so I thought, oh, okay, what's really easy, like as designs go. So that was something that I've been just keeping in the back of my mind. And, you know, again, artwork selling online. But with my disability and with my limitations, you know, it could be really challenging to try and balance a business model, I guess. You know, it would need to be flexible. And I'm not sure about, like, based on these prompts that you gave us, like, I'm really not sure how fulfilling it would be.
Right.
Like, how quickly would I get tired of doing the same design over and over again?
Right. So maybe it's and I wonder, like, is there room to iterate the design? If innovation and continuous creativity is a core value for your business, then is there room within that potential market to iterate? And so, you know, and that's where, you know, getting clear on that piece, it's, you know, it seems a little bit fluffy. I appreciate that. I feel a little bit self-helpy, which is that, you know, but yeah, sometimes, you know, it's when they don't quite line up yet, doesn't necessarily mean they're not compatible. It's just, okay, what other questions would help you have the idea that you have in mind line up with the values and the skills that you're working with. So, and yeah, the dream would be, I mean, I realize the ideal is I could sit down with each of you and we could have a conversation about your idea, what you're working with, what your constraints are, and then build the business model one-on-one. But, you know, there's, yeah, it really starts with the strengths. And then a lot of the other pieces of, like, I heard you say flexible business model, you need flexibility. Awesome. So that, you know, immediately eliminates a number of options, which is great. So now you come down to looking at what the non-negotiables are, and then what model would support that, right? So there's always a way. There's always a way. So, I'd say that's why a lot of folks who go this path, no matter how large or small it is, it's the freedom to define your terms of work, right? So both in values, but also in how you use your energy. And it can be a really helpful way to do that. Yeah. So, but happy to chat. I think great to sit down and chat. This is great.
Well, yeah, I think I want to follow up with the program you were talking about with the Reconnect.
Yes.
So that's something I'm going to seriously look at.
Awesome. And for folks, just back to the early comment about, you know, I think many of you may already be clear that you want to sell so that you continue to create. I guess where the prompts may support you is figuring out ways to bring in the resources, skills or talents or strengths that you could exchange to bring in those resources, so that you get the materials you need to continue to create. So one of our partners is Groundswell Social Ventures, and they talk about capital, but in a much broader sense beyond just money. So looking at your networks, looking at your communities that you're a part of, looking at the knowledge that you carry, all of that has value and can be exchanged and shared and bartered, so that you get what you need to do what you want to do. It sounds really intellectual, but you know, I know when it's just to support whatever gap there may be between where you are and then get getting the resources you need to craft. So for, you know, I know, Regan, you're connected with Supply and other folks who are potential sources of craft material. And I'm happy to share some follow-up resources about how to craft a request letter, or here's some grant potential, or, you know, ways to get support in applying for a grant if as a new artist, or an artist with disabilities. I know the Canada Council has funds set aside for new artists specifically. And they also have funds for artists who need extra support to apply for those grants. It's called the Access Grant System. And so that information I can share with you all. But really, it all depends kind of where you're at and what your goals are, which path is the best fit. So yeah, it's anyway. that is what I'll, yeah. I guess any other feedback even? Actually, I some of the best information I can get as a facilitator, folks are like, well, I did this and it didn't line up. Just like exactly what just happened, and that was super fruitful. So any other feedback on that exercise? Okay. Well, I'd be happy to have a chat with all of you, any of you, one-on-one too, about what it is you may be working on and looking for support with. And so, you know, I invite you to check out some of the upcoming programs we have, or at the very least, you know, feel free to schedule a call or meeting with myself. The info@community microlending email address, I'll add it to the chat as well, so it's easier to copy paste.
I'm just wondering, as a poet yourself. Because that's a very different medium than embroidery.
Yes.
But have you found ways of making income through poetry readings or selling poetry, or?
Yeah, so so for spoken word, one of the most steady sources of income for spoken word artists is to facilitate workshops and to perform. So that's where through the work as a facilitator and coordinating facilitators with Raising Voices, there is a market for artists, creators, folks to create and offer workshops to, for example, community centers or to schools. And I would argue that, well, not argue, it's not really an argument, but I would put forward that things moving online for the next little while is actually maybe opening up new opportunities to offer that as an artist, an artisan. So I'd say that those are ways, some very clear and also fairly low resource ways to create income from your knowledge and your skill as an artist. And then of course the skill, the performance fees, you know, those are not frequent, but they are another source of income. And they do pay, you know, the Canada Council and BC Arts Council have like standard rates that have brought some evenness to what artists should be paid when they do things like that.
Only if the organization is paying those fees.
It's true, though. It's you could also, what it also does is empower you to ask for that as well. So and setting those boundaries as an artist is, if that's important to you, which, you know, you can be supported by saying, you know, someone's like, how much will this cost? And it's like, well, this, you know, it's the going rate, which is this amount, and this is what this is, you know, pricing as a boundary. It's an important one. So this is the rates, and it's supported by common practice. So I'd say for folks who are working with textiles and other pieces, videos, content on YouTube, you know, there's ways that you could be generating revenue from ads. So say if you decide YouTube is one of the platforms you want to use, that's one way to do that. It's quite straightforward these days to build a workshop or some sort of course that folks can pay what they can to access. Platforms like Patreon can like give you another way to bring in revenue and build a community. So if I meet a lot of artists who are not just want to create, their craft, but they also want to build community as they do that. And so that's another way that you could be, is for $1 a month or something, your subscribers get access to, say, patterns or extra how-to videos, etc. And so that's another way to do that, and all remotely. And all of those you get to decide how often you're posting, what you're posting, etc. So there's some room to tailor it to what your needs are as well. And that's all in addition to selling things directly, or selling them through other stores, through consignment, or through wholesale. So there are a number of options. So that's why I like to start with, what do you like? Because that passion and that excitement is what's going to help you figure out all the other little details, right? So it's anyway. I guess our final slide is thank you, everyone. And do you have any final questions or comments? We're at 3 minutes till 3.
I thought it would take about an hour.
Perfect, you knew it. You know me very well. Thank you. Nailed it. I stand corrected, which is great. I also I've shared my email. Thank you. Thank you, Joan. My email, the info goes directly to me. And so does my phone number. That's also a cell phone. So actually texting, I am a millennial, so I'm textable. But and you can also send voice messages through text as well if you'd like.
Alicia, you might not be aware, but on the slide that shows your contact information, you've dropped a number in your phone number.
I did, yeah. Thank you. Let's fix that immediately. Good catch. 05. It was not a trick. I'm available. Here we go. So it's 250-216-2605 is my phone number. It is correct in the Zoom chat. But there you go.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing the knowledge and for sharing the programs. If anyone's interested, we only have a few participants today, but this video is going to be shared on our group Facebook and group email. So
great.
You might have other folks who might come and have more questions. I'm hearing some feedback on my part. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, but thank you. And thank you all for joining us again. So it'll be it'll be September 26th will be the next workshop, and that will have a speaker, Straven Lupino Smith, who is a local artist, not a textile artist, but an artist who sells their work in Victoria and across Canada. And thank you, Raven. I don't think I've ever said this before. Thank you, Raven, for captioning our sessions here. We really all appreciate it. Yeah. Great. Well, I hope you all have a lovely rest of your weekend and see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Regan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.